All right. Good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ringer Hire Show. Hey, listen, tonight it's going to be one hell of a show. I got Joel Villa all the way. Joel, you're in Reading, Pennsylvania. How's it going, man?
Doing good, David. Thank you.
All right. We got Greg Coolbaugh. It's Coolbaugh, right?
Coolbaugh, yep.
All right. He's located over in Elizabethtown, PA. How's it going, Greg?
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Thanks for having me on.
This is going to be awesome. Tonight, we're going to talk about a hiring process. We're going to talk about ambition, and we're going to talk about resume questions or some interview questions. I'm sorry. But everybody knows the drill. This is a brand new video. We'll be right back after this. Come on.
Woo, baby.
That was awesome.
That still gets my friggin' blood. And then you see the little flames the guy put on there, the little friggin' colors like that. But I feel like I'm going into war, like Craig said the other night. I'm like,
prepare for battle.
It is. It's like, dang, although he's ready to go. All right, everybody. Tonight, it's going to be a great show. And please feel free to comment as we get on along here. We're going to hit the hiring process first. Being in staffing, and you guys both got a lot of experience in that too, is the hiring process. Joel, what do you think the most important thing on the hiring process is?
That is a good question, David. I think the most important part of the hiring process is, if you're the hirer, is finding that good candidate that's going to fill that position and help not only you but the company achieve its goals, and possibly have that person who wants to have that ambition to actually go further in and do the inner promotions and see where else they can go
for the hiring process. What about you, Greg?
Same thing, man. Like, just getting the right people in. If you're running an organization and you're in an organization, like you're a department manager, a store manager, or if you own your own business, you just bought a McDonald's franchise, recruiting and staffing is everything. You got to get the right people in the right positions, or you're just going to have to work around the clock. Got to get the right people.
You're going to be working. What do you think the hiring process, you always hear what a candidate experience is, and I think when you go into an interview, I don't care how long we've all been there, done it, so many times. I think sometimes you can feel you can feel that vibe when you walk into the place. Do you agree?
I do.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Cause you're like, all right, I'm OCD. So when I'm walking in, I'll be like, all right, is everything clean? Or, it depends on where you're going in, but you can just tell a lot about a company. If Greg, in your experience, what do you feel is one of the best parts of a candidate experience should be?
Well, it starts when you walk in the door. I mean, I love that you brought that up. That's a great point because, like I always say, an interview is just a conversation, right? It's a two-way street. Like, if you're the person interviewing, you're trying to see, is this person worth our time? Are they going to be a good fit for my organization? And if you're the interviewee, right, you're like, hey, are these people going to treat me well? Is this place going to be worth me spending 40, 50 hours away from my family? So like the process starts right away. Like, if I'm walking in the door and I'm looking for a job, I'm judging, did the receptionist greet me? Did she smile? Yeah. Is she rude? I'm like, wow, there's no morale here already. Like, the first impression is everything. Is there water in the drinking machine? Is this person greeting me? Is it dirty? Or customers looking happy? Like, you can get a good picture of the vibe, to your point, right away.
Geez, that was a good answer. Hey, we got Robin. Oh, look how it puts over in the corner there. There's Rob. Oh, he's also Pennsylvania. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. How's it going, Rob?
We don't judge him too much.
Yeah, right, for Pittsburgh Steelers. I like how you said about walking in and observing, like, if everybody says hello to you. I think that's kind of important. I like that. I didn't think of it like that. You know, so when you walk in, that'll just make you feel more comfortable, I think, especially like you said, if they're sitting there real quiet and they're not picking up their head, man, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I know, right? You'd be like, what the heck, you know? They talk about background checks. You always, when you're talking to a candidate, background checks, that should be the norm. I think when people with your background, if they have a background, let's just say they're honest with you or they're not. When you bring that up, I've had candidates in the past be like, can I talk to you about something? Stop you right there. Have you ever had that happen?
I haven't personally had that happen. I've found some stuff on the background check after going through the interview process and then submitting a background check. And, then the people were even brave enough to keep coming and calling in, and you got to keep putting them off. And they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" Well, you just got to.
Especially if they ask you what you're checking for. I think right there, I still believe something, Joel. You probably know something right what they're thinking. So you really got to. I think you still can come across really good with that. You could sit here and say, if they want to tell you, that's fine. I mean, it's open and honest. I think you could be honest with a person up front about, listen, I have a background. Would this disqualify me?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually had several interviews that come through already within the past couple of weeks, oddly enough, that, the guy come up and goes, "Hey, man, I'm going to be straightforward with you. I'm an alcoholic in recovery." Or someone have come back like, "I am a recovered alcoholic. I'm doing this for the Christian church. I started a business and I'm doing this nonprofit organization." And I try, I look at those guys like, "Hey, man, you can do really good. You're going to go far." I've had people actually just open up to me. I guess is one of the things. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to have them do that kind of stuff. So you don't have to actually run the background check half the time.
Yeah, I mean, because if the way I look at you're being honest, I think you need to be honest back, and at the same time make the person feel comfortable. Because I don't think you just want to like, Greg, like shut up. Okay, well, listen, he's wasting my time or something. This ain't going to work. I think you still need to continue on with the interview.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Nope.
Greg. When I was in corporate America and interviewing people, we would interview them and then we would submit them for a background check. But now in the financial advisory business, I ask people on a pre-interview phone call. We call it a pre-interview phone call, and I get a rundown of them. They get a rundown of me, and I ask them like, "Hey, with state and federal licenses on the line here, is there any reason you wouldn't be able to pass a background check?" It's one of the first questions I ask, and they're like, "Oh no, okay, great." So then we're not wasting each other's time.
Yeah, you can move it on, and I think that you can leave up to the person, whatever. I think it's just it depends on the situation like that, how you do that. Rob, I know you're going to have a question about interview questions. Rob's going to come up with one. He's got a good job now. He's happy, so he's found a home.
So Rob,
I want to reiterate what Greg said. I think that's actually a very good question to bring up, particularly like when you get towards the end of the interview too. If you haven't brought up anything about the background, you can do that. But like, hey, we're going, if it's all right with you, we actually do background checks here. Is there anything that's going to hop on the background check so we're not wasting each other's time or anything like that? Will it be at the end of the interview or somewhere near the beginning of the interview? I think that's actually a really good question that Greg brought up for that.
We've had it set up to where, like, because the position, you could have the disqualifications on one of those folder holders, like right on front of the desk when you're doing an interview. And especially if you're really into it for backgrounds, it says on there reasons for disqualifications. Mm-hmm. So if anybody has that question, we've gone ahead and you can go ahead and just say, okay, here's the disqualifications. You don't have to tell us. It's not your right to ask that person. You're really not supposed to ask them, well, what is it for? They need, I think it's kind of just like the HEPA. You can't ask that, but you can let them talk about it. Great. Right. I mean,
that's it
there. Yeah. The other thing, I like this about the implement a structured feedback loop. So collecting feedback from new hires. So you're doing all your talks, you're talking to everybody, and you want to really follow up with them. And it's a really good idea to follow up them a week later when they're on their job, because then you can at least see the feedback. Because some people will say, well, they didn't tell me this, they didn't tell me that. You know what I mean? You got that, Joel?
No, absolutely.
You saw him on his phone. You saw him on your phone.
No, I was on my watch.
Yeah, he's on your watch.
I think it's good having the feedback. We recently, it's been kind of a weird trend that's been happening with our company lately. We've been hiring people on, and they've only been staying for a day or two, and I'll follow up with them at the end of the day, like, hey, how's everything going? They're like, oh yeah, it's really great. This stuff's really easy. I'm like, cool, yeah, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. And then they don't show up. It's just been it's been a weird trip for like the past month. I don't know what's going on. It's very odd. But yeah. But as far as the other people that we brought on that I've interviewed and had on, I've gone up to them and asked them, and they've been really, their feedback has been great. They're like, yeah, I really like it here. You know, the owner comes down, he wants to know you, talk with you. You know, he wants to know your story. He goes, you follow up with me. I love that. You know, management is actually involved with us, and we can and they make it helps morale, absolutely. And they come back to you and they're like, yeah, this is so great. You know, I really like it here because management is involved with you, kind of thing.
That's awesome. Greg, I got a question for you from Rob here. What if you hired someone that isn't the fastest work, but is getting the job done right? Do stick with that person or let the person go? Because the companies want quality over quantity over quality.
In that specific scenario, if they're getting the job done right, that's important to me, and they're showing up. I mean, I can get you faster as you get more comfortable in the role. I'm just speaking for me personally. If I have someone who's showing up, that's more than half the people out there, right? And they're doing the job right. That's more than probably the other half. I can get them faster as they get more comfortable in the role. I always hired on personality. I could teach them the job. So if they're coming in and they're doing the job the right way, which, I was in grocery stores for most of my corporate America career, and you're working with food. So doing it right is a lot more important than speed, in my personal opinion. But yeah, you're right. A lot of companies they're looking for just fast. So yeah, that's a tricky question. Me personally, yes, I would absolutely work with them.
Well, what he's looking for, like, for example, I know, like, when you're in a probationary period, I've told people before, to me, if that person was in the position, and they're getting their job done, that needs a little bit more speed, that's where I think you really, as a manager, and I think, Joel, we talked about that before, is that's when you're going to go out to that person and you're going to say, hey, what's going on? Is there something's missing? Okay, you're getting 80 pieces in the hour and you should be getting 95. You've only been here for 2 months. Okay, quality's great. What can we do? Joel, does that sound?
Yeah, that's actually that, because I'm in manufacturing. So in manufacturing, it's completely different. You definitely want you want quality, but you also want quantity as well. And the hardest part is when I bring new people on board, we sit there and we give them time. We give them a good 3-month, 90-day probationary period, and most of the time everybody hits their numbers or something. Or if they'll be like a little bit below, to get like 75 to 85% efficiency on their time and everything, which is not bad.
Right.
We'll sit down like, hey man, how's everything going? How's the situation going? Are you learning? And sometimes they'll hit those days where they hit those moments where they hit their numbers, and you want to go down. And you want to, as me being a manager, I'll go down and investigate. Okay, what was going on that day that they hit? Did he have a really good day? Hydrated and stuff like that. What was happening that day that he hit his numbers? What was the magic scenario? And then the next day he doesn't. They're like, okay, what was going on? And it could be there's so many variances that can happen with that. To be honest, I can go on and on about that type of situation. But as a manager, you want to get involved with that kind of stuff, particularly when you bring on new people as well. Being a hiring manager, you want to sit there and
I think they're nervous too. They're kind of nervous sometimes.
Absolutely,
to ask.
Absolutely.
You're nervous. Greg, you said you were would shop food stores that you worked at one point.
Yeah. Most of my experience is in grocery stores.
How did you find that with new people that have never worked within customer service? Because I can imagine in your field, would adding customers into it that aren't happy, they're a brand new employee. What would you say to that?
So that was actually one of the questions that I had kind of prepared here when we were going to discuss that is, what does good customer service look like to you?
Right.
And I want to know, like, do they understand what good customer service is? Are they going to paint the picture that it's going above and beyond? And whatever they say, it's just going above and beyond. Do they understand that? If they don't understand that, then A, it's maybe not a good fit, or B, we've really got to, get them to learn that. If it's their first job, maybe they don't know that yet, but
they don't know it.
Yeah, customer service is one of, if not the biggest part, working in a grocery store, because people are unhappy. You just got to take.
We've been told a lot of successful people in logistics are to hire people that have worked in the hospitality industry, because you can't just say anything that you want to say. And I can't even imagine, with the millennial kids, I call them kids, young people, or whatever like that, if you want to say. But how do you? It's got to be a total different supervision way, different way to do that. We got Dante Dixon, one of the great salespeople in Pennsylvania. Here he is. He works for a great staffing company. Is there something to be said about letting them know if they choose to disclose anything on background? We might not be able to keep it confidential. Joel, I'm going to give you that one first. Is there something to be said about letting them know what if they choose to disclose anything on a background that we may not be able to keep it confidential?
Well, that's a interesting question. Or
I could speak to that.
Yeah,
go for it. Yeah.
So no, that's a fantastic point. And
yeah,
you're having a brain fart, Joel. I can speak to that. I haven't had to deal.
Yeah,
with
I'm having I got several answers for that.
That's why I passed it on to Joel, because I wasn't taking it. I was like, all right, what am I going to say to this one?
I'm struggling to think of the term. I want to say mandated reporter. I don't know if that's the right term. I forget what it is.
Mandatory report.
Mandatory reporter, right. So
Yeah.
my wife used to be in massage therapy, and she was a mandated reporter. So for instance, if she became aware of some sort of, say, sexual abuse, child abuse, or something of that nature, legally she had to report it.
Oh, okay.
Across that. So I think in a situation like that, you can let someone know if they start to talk like, hey, I want to be fully open with you. You know, if you're willingly telling me these things, there are certain things that I'm legally obligated to report to the authorities. That's like telling somebody to run video camera. Maybe let them know, hey, it's on you if you tell me this. But that's a slippery slope. But
yeah, I know what you're saying now. I'm good. That was good. I was impressed. That's good, Greg.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got that.
Yeah, that was a good question, Dante.
that is.
I don't know how I would answer that right away, but it makes total sense, especially with kids or anything like that. And you're legally bound to report it. I think in the medical field too, that's a big thing too. But that one, Joel, that one had you stunned.
It did. It really did. I was just like thinking about like the right answer for that one. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's a slippery slope.
It is.
The other thing is here, I kind of agree. Foster a positive employer brand reputation, but encourage employees to share positive experience on platforms, Glassdoor. We all know. We got a response from Dante. Look at that. Look at that, Greg. There you go, man.
Great response. Yay!
He got that one. That's awesome. I don't know. We'll give out something to you, Greg, for that one. That was a good response. But reviews, and this will be the last part we'll talk about on the hiring process. If you go out and you're talking to your employees, you've got a great hiring process in there. You followed up with them. I believe in asking people to put some good reviews on if you really enjoy the company. We all know reviews are negative. Majority of them there, you can go up there. Sometimes they're warranted, especially if you have like a 1.2 and you have 500 reviews. You could probably say to yourself, all right, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But if some of the stuff is just related, I really believe that you need to talk to employees about putting reviews on there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think sometimes having the employees go up there and review, of course, it goes to say nobody has a comment unless it's a bad comment.
Right.
That's all what social media has become. That's what, the Glassdoor, Indeed, everything has gone. Everybody just puts negative comments. When I was trying to be hired myself.
That's a motorcycle.
Nice one. But
go ahead. That threw me off there with that motorcycle going by.
Nah, all good. But when I was in the hiring process, I'd actually do my reviews of those companies to see what the reviews were from. And some of the bigger companies you can look through, and they have like thousands of things, and most of 1,000 comments or 1,000 reviews. And you look at them, and there'll be like 2-star, 3-star, and you look at the comments like, oh yeah, I got knocked because I was 2 hours late, and you can definitely tell when some of those guys are just like,
some of them.
Yeah, you got fired because you're an idiot or you didn't show up to work when you're supposed to.
I think there's something to be said too. Like you guys both pretty much said, is if someone has a negative experience, they're going to charge in there like, I'm going to let them know. Yeah. They're going to leave a negative review. But I think a lot of companies, especially like I'm not in the grocery industry anymore, but something that the grocery industry did was they would ask for the feedback on receipts. They would ask for exit interviews. I think if you say you have 10 employees and you ask them, hey, what was your experience like? You're more likely to pull out some good ones than just to wait for the people to go and do it, off their own idea. Because if they're doing it on their own idea, they're gonna rip you a new one, right? But if you're asking,
good.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very important subject you just brought up, Greg, is the exit interviews. Yeah. I think when employees are leaving, there should be, no matter what company it is, small company, big company, Amazon-ish, to all the way down to like where you and I used to work and everything like that. There needs to be exit interviews. There's employees that are leaving. Sometimes employees leave because, hey, mom and dad are moving. I want to move with them, take care of them. Cool.
Yeah, they do.
Not a big deal.
Yep.
But then there's other times people just leave and you're like, hey, man, why are you leaving? Let's do an interview. How's everything happening?
What can we do better?
Right, exactly.
Greg, if I was to ask you and you're in an interview, you've done your research on the company, would you bring up the reviews of the company in an interview?
If
they were low reviews, would you ask in an interview, if you were the interviewee, you're getting interviewed, would you ask, I've noticed that you have 1.2 or a rating of low reviews? Would you say anything?
It depends. I would say probably not. If I looked beforehand and say there was 500 reviews and like you said it was a 1.2, then okay, the consensus is these guys suck. Yeah. I wouldn't be there. If it was like there was a couple bad ones and I was like, I think I have a good feeling about this place, but I want to iron out a couple things I'm concerned about, I would bring it. Hey, maybe I wouldn't say about the reviews. I would say one of the things, like say the person commented and said that the management was unprofessional. Right. I might ask them and say, how do you feel that the professionalism in your organization? Do you think that's a strong suit or an opportunity you're still working on, or paint a picture for me what that looks like? I would kind of backport it that way, maybe.
No, that's. I think I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know if I would or not. I just think it
directly.
It probably wouldn't work there.
Yeah, I used that once for an actual interview that I was going to when I was in the job hunting process. And I look at the reviews, and I didn't bring up like, oh, I got a question about a review. I would bring up what Greg just said, that certain subject dealing with that, what was happening with them. Like, hey, I noticed that this was going on, and hey, what can you tell me about the morale, or what can you tell me about the PTO, or whatever the subject was that one review kind of stood out.
And that's a good point. No, I like that, and that makes total sense. I mean, naturally, you're doing your research on the company anyway. You're going to look at it, and you're going to make that determination when you go. And I think if you have a company that has such low reviews, you're going to see that when you go in. Mm-hmm. I really would. Dante says a bit direct. I would hear more toward company culture. That word there, ever since COVID, we've always said that's a new word. Company culture. I don't think we used that 2 years ago prior. I didn't really even know what that would mean. We never brought that up. But with everybody the way it's working with hybrid, home, and everything like that, I get it. I just how do you ask that in an interview? How would you even ask that when you're in there about company culture, Greg?
I think it depends. If it was opened up and it was something you're actively talking about, you can kind of bring it up. If it's something in one of your questions at the end, you can say, hey, culture is really important to me. It seems like it is to you guys. How do you rate the culture here?
What's culture to you? What's culture to you?
Culture to me is, how do I feel when I'm here? Do I feel like it's a family valued place? Work-life balance is important here. Do I feel like we treat each other with respect? Do I feel like my views align with yours, or yours align with mine? What do I feel like? Is this a good environment for me? Am I welcome here in your organization? Do I feel welcome here? What's the whole thing feel like? What's the vibe I'm getting?
Yeah,
and I think you can almost get that by the end of the interview if the person's like rushing you along or if they're short. It is direct. I think he's absolutely right.
Yeah,
you could ask it in a roundabout way. I think that's one of those questions that you sneak in when there's an opportunity to, instead of just come out and say, hey, how's your culture here? Are you guys a bunch of nuts?
Yeah. When it comes, especially like PTO and all your vacation time, everything people look, I think that gets into that category also. Joel, what's culture mean to you? I think you've answered this one before, I believe.
Yeah, we did. Like I said, the culture to me is the same thing that Greg said before. It's, is this going to be, basically what it comes down to, is this going to be a good fit for me? Does this align with my values? Are the people who work hard rewarded for working hard? Are the slackers, held accountable for being slackers? Am I going to be micromanaged, or am I going to be free to do, hey, here's your left and right lateral limits? I'm talking about gun ranges here. Being in the military, left and right lateral limits. Here they are, go do good things. Am I going to be micromanaged, or be free to roam within my left and right lateral limits? Am I going to be able just to, hey, do good things, make stuff happen?
Yeah, I think you could do that. What you're saying there too is, when do you, I like what Greg said too, is like, when do you ask that question? When do you go into that? Like, when do you talk about it? Do you talk about it in the first 10 minutes? Do you talk about, I just think it depends, but I kind of like that way to sneak a question in there. I mean, you could probably get a couple of them in there.
I always ask that question at the end when they ask you, do you have any questions? I'll ask that. If I don't have a vibe for it, I'll ask that question. Like, hey, what's the company culture like here?
Rob says, how do you make a new employee feel wanted, to make person wanted to be part of your team? What if the culture is totally different than what you expect? Greg, if you want to take your first one on that one.
How do you make them feel wanted? I think that's a great question. They're going to either feel wanted or not by the way that you interview them. I don't think just anybody should be doing an interview. If you have no idea how to relate to people, you shouldn't be doing an interview.
I agree with that 1,000. You know what? I agree with that 1,000% there.
Right. No, thanks. And you've got to be a relational person. So you've got to make them feel wanted by asking them not just a simple, hey, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Why do you want to work? Like, all that stuff's not, you can Google like all these questions to ask and look at good answers, and heck, AI probably generate you ones.
I know, right?
but like ask them, hey, what do you do for fun? You know, what has you open to opportunities? What brings you here today? Why are you here? What didn't you find in your last job that you're looking for here? Oh, well, now they're interested in me and my work life. And, you know, I think it's a feeling. Make them feel wanted in the questions that you ask and the way that you interact with them. They're either going to feel wanted by the things you ask and how you interact, or they're going to be like, this guy doesn't care. He's looking for people to come in. Warm bodies. We used to call them, just get warm bodies.
Yeah, warm bodies. I hate that saying. I've always have. And it's just like even when people say about temps or temporary, or I hate that word temp. I don't like it. I really don't. I'd rather say associate. Or, you know, because everybody says, well, if you're going in for a temporary position, well, you know what? You're an employee. You have an employer. You're not, you know, but you can look at the workforce too. And you can see if you got 3 or 4 staffing agencies within the place and you're hiring full time, that sometimes draws a little flag too. You're going to be like, whoa, wait a minute here, you know, the high turnover. But Greg, what is that? I'm sorry, Joe, what do you want to say to this one?
Oh, no, I think Greg took the first 2 questions very well. My thing is, I'm looking at the last one. What is totally different than what you expected? And my thing is, it depends on what that culture is. If it's not the way you think it is, and I hate to be that person because I've always been 100% committed to everything that I do, is if that culture is not what you want, then the place probably isn't for you. Time to go look somewhere else. Or while you're there, look for another position or another place to go into.
Yeah, because I don't think if you know right away, and that's a good question, Rob, because if you know right away and you have that gut feeling, I still see you get that gut feeling. Oh my God, did I make a mistake? Because some people always leave another job to go to one they think it's the grass is greener. And then when they get there, it's like, whoa, okay, that's not what they said in the interview. And that can come back and bite you in the ass. Mm-hmm. And I've had that happen. I'm going to be honest, man. I've had it to where if I forgot to say something or I'm like, oh, shoot. And then they come back, they'll call you out on it. You didn't tell us this, or you didn't say this. And you got to be careful with that.
So sometimes I'll say that for the orientation. When they come in for orientation, I'm like, hey, I forgot to mention this. Hopefully it's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, it is.
I think right. That's exactly it. You know, it's an interview process. It's not a hiring process. You're seeing if it's a good fit for you to bring them in, and they're seeing if they're a good fit or you're a good fit to work for, right? So sometimes it's not. You know, it's not the hiring process, it's the interview process. I think that's a great question. You know, there's cultural differences, there's political differences, whatever. If you don't feel welcome there and you don't feel like your, you know, views and core values align, then hey, I appreciate the time, handshake, and go have a nice day. There's other things to do.
Yeah, and then you can, even in the exit interview, that's the time where you can put that stuff in there if companies do that. You know, I believe in the exit. I think we all get away from it sometimes. I think a lot of companies get away from that part because they always feel it's a negative. But again, if you got 300 reviews in front of you and they're all pretty, you know what I mean? If that person was constantly saying the same thing, this is why this person left, for the company culture. You know, you said you got so many days off for this and it didn't, you know what I mean? That's going to come back at you. And there's truth to some of the reviews, some of it. And unless you don't want anything, don't ask for an exit interview, because if you're not ready to handle it,
right,
you know, don't sit there. You're asking for that information. So if your name's brought up, be prepared. Yep. You know, Dante has another thing here. He's saying continuous engagement, making sure you have open and honest dialogue and understanding what culture means to them. Great question. I think tough on most people who work in the recruitment and management field.
Right.
Yeah,
that is. And I really think, again, You might want to fill that job. You want to fill that job, and you're going to say everything, the best things that you can say. You're not going to say anything negative, and bam, that's going to come back at you.
Mm-hmm. Transparency is key.
What's that?
Transparency is key.
It is. And Rob said he only had 2 exit interviews, and 2 exit interviews. Yeah, I've only had like about 8 jobs in my career, so I'm trying to think. I think I had like 1, and I was honest. I did it. I did it. And remember those little boxes? I don't know if anybody's remember. You put the little boxes for you would drop in recommendations. It would mount it on the outside of the office door, somewhere discreet within the building, to where you could just put in there. You could write something on there and put it in there, like comments, anything that you have that's negative about the place.
An anonymous box.
I think you need to read them. But again, be prepared. You better be prepared for some negative stuff. And if it's if you're a supervisor that's constantly like being a prick or anything like that, and you got people because of that person over and over's name, that's when I think that has a lot to do with it too. To try to be transparent, as honest as you can as a recruiter. The next part of the show is about. I'm going to give this one to Joel. Joel said, "Hey Dave, I want to talk about the word ambition." Now, I'm not going to say I did this AI generated. I'm not going to say that open AI, but I'm going to read the definition and I'm going to let Joel take it. But ambition, listen to this. I mean, this tells you about everything. So ambition refers to a strong desire, determination to achieve success, reach goals, accomplish something significant in life, motivation, drive that compels individuals to work hard, set high aspirations, strive for personal and professional advancement, and it goes on. Strong sense of purpose. I like that. Strong sense of purpose, willingness, and take risks. And take it out, Joel, because let me tell you, that even goes longer and longer. That's a friggin' hell of a word.
Ambition is a driving force that gets us to where we want to go. And if you do not have ambition, you are not going to end up where you want to be in life. Period.
I haven't heard that word in so long. And damn.
That's why I want to bring it up. I was listening to Jim Rome's Power of Ambition, and I can tell you what, whenever I went to interviews or when I'm doing interviews, I look for that ambition. I look for that drive that person is going to bring to the company, bring to me. And what I'm going to bring to their companies if I'm doing an interview. If I'm being interviewed, what I'm going to do for them. And ambition is what sets you apart from everybody else. If you come to interview and you don't have the ambition, you're like, look, I just want to be a warm body for your company. You're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything. If you go in there and you have ambition, you have drive, you have discipline, you are going to excel. You are going to go where you want. You have the ambition to earn $20 an hour. They're only hiring at 17, but you have the possibility to get to 20. You go in there with 17 with the ambition that you're going to make it up there. And I
go in there and you're going to do it. And if you say it, I believe the way you talk about it. Greg, what about you? Ambition. What is that word, man?
It's a decision, man. It's as simple as a decision. Yes, I'm going to be ambitious. No, I'm not. Yes, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock and go to the gym. No, I'm not. It's a simple decision. If someone doesn't make that decision that they want to go for it and they want the best, they're not going to do it. I always say, like, I'm hiring on personality. Ambition's part of personality, in my opinion. You can't teach someone that. They either have it or they don't.
They don't.
Like someone who's a recovering drug addict, they have to want it. You can tell them all day it's going to kill them.
I think in the way you're talking in the interview too, like how do you express that, Joel? How would you express that in an interview? What do you feel?
Oh yeah. If you're going to express that you have ambition in an interview, one, I would try to bring up that word when you have the possibility to bring up that word. Like, I have the ambition and the drive to bring my characteristics and my traits to your company, to do what you want me to do for your company. I want to be that force, that driving force to help your company. I have the ambition and the drive to go the extra step for you guys. As long as you take care of me, I will take care of you.
Well, the rest of it here, I love it, even says, and it goes back to obstacles and challenges. So if you're looking for somebody with ambition, that's 2 of the top words. It says obstacles and challenges. So you have to have somebody that has that, that once the obstacles, challenges along the way, it can manifest various areas of life, career, education, creative pursuits, personal development, making positive impact. Ambition can vary in intensity and scope. I like that intensity. I like that word, intensity and scope of it, ranging from
Hey,
goals to grand visions and success.
That's Marine talk right there. Intensity. We come at everything with intensity. We're going to make it happen.
I mean,
With
I like
conviction.
that word until you said that tonight. I don't use it enough.
Yeah.
I think passion.
Mhm.
Passion
Passion's good.
is almost the same in a way, right? Do you agree, Greg? I mean,
Passion and ambition can be both mixed and mixed, in my opinion.
what do you mean?
So you can have the passion to do something, but it doesn't mean you have the ambition to make it happen. Passion is the feeling you want to have it done. In my opinion, passion is, I believe, the feeling that you want to have it done. Like, I have the passion to make this change, but if you don't have the ambition to make the change, you're not going to make that change.
Okay, I can see that point. What about you, Greg? I can feel that point. I mean,
I see what you're saying. I think there's another side to it too. In addition to that, I think passion and ambition, not addition, can go hand in hand, because if I'm passionate about it, to me personally, that means I'm fired up about it. Like, if I'm passionate about helping children, then I'm fired up about it. Like, I like it. That's what fills me up, is I want to help children, right? In that scenario.
Right.
So that, I think, would by default make me ambitious. Like, if that's what fires me up, I want to go do it. I want to get it done. I want to make an impact on kids,
on the kids.
I think if you're passionate about it, that could make you ambitious. But also, I agree with what Joel said. So they're kind of different.
Yeah.
I know myself, if I was interviewing I love peak season. I'm sorry. A lot of big recruiters don't want to hear that. I thrive for it, baby. I want I want that when they say, Dave, we need 500 friggin' people and we need it in 2 weeks. I go nuts, because I will go friggin' insane, and I'll drive everybody else insane. But you got to how do you, if you're in an interview process, you could say it just like that, almost like, I thrive for that. That's what I live for on that part. Here it says, when you're adding ambition to the hiring process for candidates, involves evaluating their motivation, drive, determination to succeed. So it says, clearly define your company's visions and goals. And I think that's got to come out there, because what would be your goal, Joel, if you're sitting there saying, okay, you got to listen to the words I think that the interviewer is saying.
Mm-hmm.
How you want to respond to that? How do you want to show that person? Like you said, I think one of you said before the show, you were saying, what happens if you have a shy person that's really,
yeah.
How do they, Greg, how would you think someone like that would show ambition?
You got to pull it out of them. Ask them what they do for fun. Ask them what's important to them. Hey, what's really important to you in your life? It doesn't have to be professionally. It could be personally. What's really important to you? One of my favorite questions is, tell me what one of your greatest accomplishments is. And sometimes if they really think and they're shy, I might have to help them. Hey, some people tell me being a mom. Some people say graduating high school or going back and do it after I got kicked out. There's no right or wrong answer. Listen to what they say. Usually when you ask someone either of those questions, I think you can kind of pull out of them and give them the mic and let them talk. And they'll give you what fires them up.
I think they'll lighten up on it, especially if I agree with what you're saying. I know what you're saying, because you're trying to talk it, give them the right wording, and then you can see either their body movement. Sometimes you can just see it's woke them. It woke them up. Like, if you say, whenever you talk about an interview and you start bringing up like hobbies, right? And you have a passion for music, you can tell when that person starts talking about it. Their whole body, their whole demeanor changes, or tell us about your kids or, children. You say you had children. So if they've said to me, hey, I have children, then you ask, okay, hey, how old are they? Or what do you like doing with the kids? And right there, it just can change the interview. Mm-hmm. It can make that person, I believe, can make them more relaxed and then open up to you. But I do like that. Joel, what made you think of ambition tonight, man? I like that words.
No, the thing that brought up ambition to me is what you and I were messaging each other earlier is, think about the interview process. And I think in order to be noticed by any companies, if you want to be hired, you have to have that ambition. Now, I know you've had other people on here on your show, who are looking for jobs, and everything. I think they need to go out and Lord knows I know they're trying and everything. You think maybe going that extra step to show that ambition, that drive that you have, like, hey, I will hit your goals if you tell me what your goals are. You give me your left and right lateral limits. I'm going to shoot right there in the center and hit that target for you.
Hit that target. Dante says again here, Greg, I think passion can be short-lived, but ambition involves discipline and is in your DNA. I like that. That you'll continue the ambition even when the passion fades. Take you that one, Greg.
I agree with that. I think yeah, you can be passionate about something one day, but ambition is something that you decide. Again, I think
Right.
if I wake up and I don't feel like going to the gym, just for example, maybe I got a cold or I only got 3 hours of sleep because the baby was up. I don't know, whatever. And you're like, I'm not fired up about working out today, but my ambition, I decided I'm working out 6 days this week or 5 days or whatever.
Right.
So at that point, your decision kicks in. Yeah, it's either in your in your DNA or not. I like that.
Dante, you're coming up with some pretty good questions, man. I look at words like in that sentence. I look at ambition, and then it involves discipline. And in your DNA. Discipline, right there. Just one word that can also be put into that.
Yeah, it's one of the core features of ambition is you have to have discipline in order for your ambition to flourish.
Yeah, it does. And especially if somebody was to say that in an interview, those words, they're the kind of words I'm looking for.
Yes.
And you can tell the person after you're done with an interview, and we've all done them, and what words I think they're looking for.
I think you can. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go.
I was going to say, I think you could spin that back on the interviewer. If they're talking about ambition, and you can use a story. People like stories. Yeah. Like, say, Dave, if you're interviewing me and you ask about ambition, is ambition important to me? And I would say, that's a great question. I'll tell you, I really like a guy on YouTube. His name's Greg Coolbaugh, and he talks about stacking wins in the morning versus stacking losses and keeping promises to yourself. Like if you tell yourself, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. every day, and you don't get up at 5 a.m. Well, now you broke a promise to yourself. You started the day with an L, with a loss. So you lose a little bit of faith in yourself. You said you were going to go to the gym on Wednesday. You didn't get up at 5 a.m. or go to the gym. Now you stacked 2 L's for the day. So for me, I really get fired up about, am I stacking L's for the day or stacking wins?
I like that.
That's an excellent point.
You can tell that story instead of going, I'm ambitious, I'm a hard worker, I'm going to be a great element to your team. He said, hey, that's a great question.
And then they call off the next day. Then they call,
Tell them a story. Tell them what lights you up. Now, I didn't tell them I'm ambitious. I just told them what ambition means to me and what fires me up about it. It's how you answer the question, not necessarily what you say.
I like it. I like that. That's an awesome. You're all right, Greg. I'll tell you what, man.
Thanks, man. We're having fun. This is great.
You had me thinking. All right, the next part of the show for about 15 minutes here, we're going to talk about I love this, interview questions.
I love it.
The great one. I love it. I got 96 of them, but we're not there yet, Joel. We still got a long way to go yet.
Well, we got half of them that first one, right? In part 1.
Yeah, the first one there. That show did pretty good, because some of the stuff, like we talked about before, if you don't prepare, I think nowadays, the way the market is right now, I really believe that you need to prepare really well for an interview. You really need to be on top of everything. Like you said, everything we're talking about here tonight, practice with somebody, ask somebody, reach out, network with somebody, some new ideas. But at the same time, we all can use Google. You can Google great questions now or open AI, to get your questions, because everybody goes to Google and types in the top 25 questions in a certain field. Let's just take it like logistics, and look at that field. Naturally, the jobs that you're talking, hospitals, medicals, and all that, that's totally different. I mean, I can see why the process is there, but these kind of questions, what I like, and the first one that I like how this gentleman wrote in here is, let me switch roles with you before we begin. When you hire people at your own company, what do you generally look for in terms of their backgrounds, experiences, and overall style?
Go for it, Greg.
Let me switch roles with you when we begin. When you hire people at your own company, what do you generally look for in the terms of their backgrounds, experiences, and overall style? So you're kind of turning that question around.
That's it. I love that.
So that's
switch roles
around on the interviewer.
Now you're the interviewer. Yep.
That's a lot of questions in one question. Touched on like culture. They touched on.
Thanks, Dante. Have a good night.
Yep. Appreciate you, Dante.
Yep.
That's so many questions in one. I think, again, tell a story about an experience you had before. I think you could tell a story about a positive experience you had somewhere you worked and answer that entire question. That's probably what I would do.
Yeah, because that would throw me off. I mean, if I'm hiring for a recruiter and I'm interviewing a recruiter, naturally, I'm going to kind of ask the same kind of questions in a way that, what do I look for? Because if you are experienced in that field, you're going to pretty much know, I think, you're going to know what you're looking for, because we've all interviewed people, and we've been, how many times have you been interviewed, So Joel, what do you think about that one?
That's definitely, I believe that's one of those bearing questions where you get asked that question and they want to see what your bearing is going to be like. And then how can you answer that question like Greg was talking about? One, it's a throw off question. It's going to throw you off your game for a little bit. And two, how well can you recover from it, and then answer that question? And once again, it goes back to what Greg said. You answer it with a story. Talk about a story of
I like that.
You're looking for,
by saying
they want to see, can you articulate a conversation?
Exactly.
Can you throw a curveball at you, and do you get stumbled and get all confused, or are you going to stay on track? Can you play ball with me? I think that's kind of like you're taking a shot.
What I like about the book on this part is it not only asks you, but it tells you after the question why you asked this question. So you got to read about it. Why should I ask this? It gives you scenarios, what you could say. Then it has you in the book analyzing the response and why ask this question again. And it tells you what you really want to look for. And I kind of like that because, again, a lot of it comes down to keywords. That's me. I don't know about you, but I mean, if I'm asking a question like that, I'm looking for the right words.
Yep.
Exactly. That you can tell what the person knows. Greg, we were talking before the show. You talked about a question that, I'm sorry, let's back it up. You had one interview question that you wanted to ask, right? There was one.
Well, I wrote down a couple of ones. We touched on a little bit of them, but the part that I was excited to talk about is the ones I ask when the interviewer says, "Do you have any questions for me?" at the very end. And I think it's so important not to screw this up, because this is like the final boss in a video game. It's the final test on the question, right? It's the final test.
The final countdown.
Yeah, it's the final countdown. Da-da-da-da. When they're asking you, "Hey, so do you have any other questions for me?" Doesn't matter how well you interviewed up to that point. If you go, no, I think we covered everything, you just bombed the whole thing. You might as well pack up, go home, apply somewhere else, in my personal opinion. Yeah. If someone did that to me, I'm like, now, if it's for a part-time role, whatever, I don't expect that. But if it's for a leadership role, someone who's going to make 50, 60, 80, 100 grand a year, and they're going to be responsible for things, they got to have, be sharp. You got to answer with questions. You got to say, yeah, I have a couple go-to questions I typically like to ask, and I'll give you my three. They're my three that I always did, and the third one's like my wild card that I came up with. So, I mean, I'll just pretend, David, you just asked me, "Hey, do you have any questions for me?" Yeah, Dave, I have three go-to questions I always like to ask, and the first one is, what sort of travel expectations are there with the company?
Okay.
I would always ask that because, if you got to go to a corporate meeting once a year in California, you should probably know that. Lidl or Lidl, however you want to say it, at the grocery store, when they came here, I saw their ad, and they were going to train store managers overseas. You should know that before you apply, right? So you should know what travel expectations are. I have a family with 3 kids. If I was going to apply for a job, I would want to know, where do you want me to go, if anywhere? So to me, that's very important.
I like that. That's
the second one I always ask, and this is painting the picture. I don't like to say I'm ambitious. I want to paint the picture. I want them to think it without me saying.
Joel, I know why you asked for me to reach out to Greg. This is why. All right, go ahead, Greg. I'm listening. You got my attention.
My second question I always ask is, what sort of advancement opportunities are there for me? So now you're like, wow, this guy's thinking of the future. He's thinking long term. And they're going to start spilling the beans. You just wait for a response. They're going to go, oh, well, yeah, typically we have openings in this role, that role. With your background, they're going to start to fluff you, right? Oh, with your background, I think you could move into this role if you came on board, and they're going to start to spill it for you, and then you're going to know. Yep. And my third and final question I always ask is, and I have always gotten positive feedback. I've mentored countless. I'm young. I'm 34, but I've had people younger than me going into like first-time low management roles. And right. I told them, ask this question. It's a game changer. It totally throws off the interviewer in a good way. And my final question
you got my attention.
Dave, the final question I like to ask is, if you roll the dice and you're like, yeah, I want to give Greg a shot. We want to bring him on board. We feel good about it. What would you hope to find in me? What did the last guy that you had in this role not have? What do you want to find in me that you're like, man, I hope if we bring Greg on board, he's going to be good at this. We just need someone to finally be good at this. What is that inside thing that you're like, I hope Greg can do? What is that? I want to know. I want the inside.
Wow, you're coming back strong to where while you're saying that to me, I would be sitting there thinking of my pain points. Like my pain points of what I'm looking for, like for somebody that has, let's just say, a certain software. Listen, I'm not great on SAP or something like that, but I'm looking for somebody that can come in here and just take that friggin' off and just take it over. That's what I was thinking when you were saying that. Like
pain points.
My pain points. What are my pain points? Joel, what about you? That's a good question. I like
That is excellent. I love that one. And yeah, it's just exactly what you said too. Like, what are the pain points? And if you want to go into those kind of questions, that's another question to ask. Like, hey, what are the pain points that this company is having right now that I can help remedy? Another one to ask during the interview.
that you can ask. And there it comes back to, like, I'm thinking while you guys are talking, there it comes back with that ambition remark.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, that I think right there I never had somebody ask like that, but if you were asking me like that, I think I'd get all pumped up. I'd be like, I'm ready to answer this freaking guy, man. I'll tell you what I want, Greg. I'll tell you.
Most of the time when I've asked that question, they come in a roundabout way of saying, well, that's what I want. Somebody gives a rip about the job. And that's the last impression you have on them before you go. So if you ask them a question, it shows that you're, inquiring and you're a thinker and you're ambitious. So to me, that seals the deal. The last couple questions I personally think those three are good. You could ask any series of questions, but for me, that's the most important thing. How they answer those three. Because again, it's a conversation. I'm interviewing them. Right. Those three questions are going to tell me what they're looking for. And to your point, that's exactly what it's designed to do, is pull out the pain points. I want to know what you're looking for. Like, let's cut down the business. What did the last guy not do? What do you need from me? I can do that for you. Great.
I want people to make friggin' decisions. I want people to make decisions.
Problem solving, right?
Yeah, I want them to friggin', I don't want to have to. I always said that if I'm teaching a young, and this is all because I've learned mistakes. I've done it. You evolve. I like that word, Joel. Evolve.
Yeah,
remember that one. Andre Young would always tell me, evolve.
Yep.
So I think as you evolve and as I get older, I've already made all those mistakes. Mm-hmm. So I want somebody to come in and it's not afraid to make a decision, whether it's wrong or right. There's nothing that's going to really harm if it's something, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You can have that conversation with them afterwards saying, you know what, Greg, that was a great call, but I think we need to do it like this the next time.
Decisiveness.
Okay, because that right there, I love, again, ambition. I like how you took that on, but this is the policy. We're not allowed to do this or something like that. And I think you can use that as a training moment to teach that person, because I've made those mistakes, but I'm not afraid to make them because I've always been taught that. Make a decision, make it. Don't constantly sit there and say, well, I'll get back to you constantly, or I'll get back to you, because a lot of employees see that. I know that's another subject, but that they see that point, if that makes sense, Joe. I'm going to end it there because I can go on and on about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you're talking about, it comes to the decisiveness. Somebody's going to be decisive in making judgments and sound decisions. It might not be the right thing at all, but hey, as long as they're decisive, they make that decision. Hey, you know what? You were wrong. Like, and that's happened to me at my current job. I was like, you made a mistake. I'm like, okay, you're going to teach me, and they teach me. They brought me back. I'm like, hey, this is what you need to do. I'm like, okay.
All right, Greg. So what are those three things again? Three.
The three questions I ask when asked at the very end of the interview. Hey, do you have any questions for me? My three go-to. What sort of travel expectations are there? Gotcha.
Travel.
Where do you want me to go? Is there a corporate meeting in Taiwan? Like, where do I need to go? What's it look like? Are there any? What sort of advancement opportunities are there for me? And the third one, is a little bit more complicated. Hey, if you wanted to roll the dice on me and you decide to bring me on board,
love it.
What do you want to find in me? Like, what did the last person in this role not have that you're like, man, I hope Greg can do this? Like, what is that thing that you're like, I hope Greg can do that if we bring
I love it. Anybody watching that? And I bet you said Taiwan because you're looking at Joel's background, didn't you?
I've been waiting to bust that out. You beat me to it.
Well, you said Taiwan. I'm thinking, why would you say Taiwan? I'm looking at that. I would have said the same thing with Joel's background. I mean, geez.
Yeah, right.
We'll go there. All right. We got two more questions.
Very young.
It is. We got two more questions. So this one I kind of like. Walk me through your progression in your career leading up how you landed your previous role at your company. So walk me through your progression in your career leading up on how you landed your previous role. So I think what they're saying there, the way I look at this is how did I get to, like, say you're a supervisor, like a lead supervisor, manager, when you're moving up like that. I think you could use, I would answer like you could use my career as that point as an answer. That's just me. I'm thinking I'd have to use my career. I started out doing this in the military, went from there. I've had leadership roles ever since I left. So I'd have to say that was my foundation. And then I grew. What do you think on that one, Joel?
No, I completely agree. Having a military background definitely it brings you up from the
Oh, you're
lower
saying that
ranks.
because you're a former Marine, man.
That too, yeah, exactly. But
Uh,
yeah, it's awesome. I love it. But because of that, you start off, you have that foundation where you're the follower, you're the Indian, and you work your way up to being the chief Indian, and starting to lead the tribe. Kind of right, I guess acronym or and the analogy I'm using. Sorry, I can't think right now. It's weird.
that's okay.
Using that analogy for it, but I think that's the perfect example. That's the foundation that leads you up, and then you just tell that you can either tell a story or talk
Again.
about, hey, this is what brought me here. You talk about, hey, I have a military background, brought me into leadership positions. This is what took me over to the next steps up.
What do you think about that, Greg, when you say it like that?
I think that question is similar to one that I used to ask, and that was, tell me about your professional experience so far, and what you've done, what you're doing currently, and what has you here today, what has you looking for opportunities. And that's kind of how I would word probably just about the same thing. And I think it does a couple things. Like it's looking to show that you've maybe got promoted or moved up in other jobs, because you're going to give them your whole history, your whole rundown in a couple seconds.
Yep.
And it's also like, how well do you articulate your story? Can you communicate?
You guys are both in agreement with stories. I like that.
Yeah,
you both
stories capture everything.
Yeah, am I? Well, I worked at Rita's for a little while, and what was the question? Like, how do you articulate the answer? Is this person sharp or not? So it does a lot of things. And for me, I would tell a story. Well, let's just say, so I worked at Wise Markets for years, and then I worked at Turkey Hill as a store manager for a little while. So I'll use a perfect example of a role after that, because I wasn't at Turkey Hill too long. And, they're probably wondering why would you move? So I've had that question, and here's exactly how I answered it. Well, hey, I worked my way up from part-time produce clerk at Wise Markets to a department manager, and then an assistant store manager. And at the time, they had eliminated a different role. So there was what I called a baby boom of assistant store managers, lots of people in my role, really competitive. So my opportunity to move up beyond that, really dwindled or kind of took a back seat, because there were so many people in my role, and I wanted to move up quicker. I felt like I was ready. So after about 9 years there, I took a jump and went to Turkey Hill, because they offered me a store manager role. And a similar thing happened there. The company was bought by a different company, and my ambition to go beyond the store manager role kind of went away as they eliminated all the positions you could go to. So I kind of felt like I was funneled into a box. Great company to work for. I really enjoyed it, but it didn't align with where I wanted to go in the time frame I wanted to go to. And I liked what I saw here. So just tell a story and tell it well.
Yeah. I kind of like that, because again, the story part, what you're saying, and progression into that job. Like when you started out the part-time, I wouldn't have thought of like that. In the hospitality, the same thing, starting out and just working your way up. You could probably move all over the place, the way the different positions. I mean, in that kind of field right there, I can't even imagine.
And something else too, David, is most of these questions are pretty generic too. So for our viewers who are in on this, like, rehearse your stuff, rehearse that story, have that story. You might not get asked that question very rarely, but rehearse it.
I write it down, man. Write it down.
Yeah.
And then just and practice what you're saying, because that, again, your progression. What if they don't have? I like how you said, Greg, about well, I worked here. Okay, it's okay that you don't know the answer. Maybe that person doesn't know really anything about like a leadership management, or maybe that's not what they're going for.
Yeah, it depends what you're interviewing them for.
That's what I mean. You can articulate if they say it in a certain way. That I think I'd rather look for an answer like that.
I interview a part-time deli clerk that's 19 years old, way different than someone who's going to be $100,000 a year store manager. You know what I mean?
Right.
A whole different scale of different questions. I'm holding them to a way higher standard. So it depends what they're interview for. No,
I got two more. And wow, we hit the 58-minute mark. Two more. We got the hour show. Look at that, the hour show. The hour show of Fox News. Oh, we're not going to go there. Right? All right, two more. This one here is for you, Joel. All right. So, what was your favorite position, and what role did your boss play in making it so unique?
That is a great question. I love those questions, because you can refer to those to a lot of things. You have to go back to one of those times you had a good time. I usually refer to
a good time. I know what you're saying. You're good. Yeah, it's going to take you back.
Yeah, you really want to go back, and it goes back to what Greg was talking about doing a story. My default is when I was with Special Forces. I was just good good. Trying to think of the right terminology to use here without cussing. But yeah, it was really, yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was the best time because you're given that freedom to do what you need to do. You want to,
Right.
hey, you're in charge of this, make it work, and you make it work, and you hit all the exceptions. Boss comes down and says, "Dude, you not only excel, you only hit your marks, you excelled. You gave me more than what I wanted." And that's what you want to kind of lead off with.
You notice how you said that right away? That was a good question. You answered it perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you went to that. I like you. Go to that happy place.
Yeah.
Like I know the best spot I had, the best people, bosses on my hand. How many? And I can name all of them. But that's because it's a positive. You could also go reverse, but the positive. I like how you say that.
Yeah, a lot of people will talk more about the positive stuff. So you want to ask. Remember we talked about the last time we did this with with part one. You want to have those positive questions. You don't want to ask too many negative questions. If you ask those positive questions, it's going to get that brain reacting because people react more to positive questions, and now we'll start giving you more in depth of what you're going to look for as far as being the interviewer.
Well, on that part, Greg, then when he was saying positive questions. Would you try to keep them all positive, or do you want to throw a negative one in there? Like, because some of the questions, I mean, we'll head it on another show, but that can be reversed too. There's one of the questions here: what with a bad boss? Like, did you have a problem with a manager? When you say, if I was to ask you, Greg, okay, can you name a position that you had a problem with your boss? How did you solve that problem?
I love that you brought that up because I love talking about that kind of stuff. And that actually, I have a couple of similar questions. Like, tell me about a time you overcame a difficulty in the workplace. Yep. That could be anyway. And I think to answer your first part of the question, you can ask a negative question and spin it in a way like, hey, tell me about a time you dealt with adversity. So I'm asking about a hard time, but I'm asking how you dealt with it. And, I would, again, same theme as always, tell a story. And my go-to was, when I was at Wise Markets, one of the previous companies I worked for, I was an assistant store manager. So one rank down from the top person in the store, right? And I had a store manager who I just couldn't get along with. She and I didn't see eye to eye at all. And it got to a point where the associates in the building were starting to pick up the tension. That's very unprofessional and a big problem. Yep. So I actually told her, hey, can we go talk in the office? Let's go hash this out. And I said, look, people are coming to us or coming to me and they're wondering when things are going to pop off and it's just not good. We got to figure stuff out. And we had like a 2-3 hour discussion and realized that our goals, not only were we in agreement, we were in alignment. And I love that there's a difference between the two. There's a book, Functions of a Team, and it talks about the difference. But we were in agreement and alignment. We just didn't realize it. So we hashed it out, had a great partnership for a long time after that. And that was one of my favorite roles and one of my favorite buildings, one of my favorite jobs I've ever had was working with her after that. And so I dealt with the adversity there. And so did she, really being willing. And the morale in the store totally transformed. We actually got shirts with her face on it and made a certain day and just a lot of fun. Like morale just went through the roof because we were willing to
Well, that's what I would look for the way you're saying that. If you were interviewing right now saying that to me, I would already be saying to myself, wow, because you offered the solution, what you did. And I like that because that made me thinking, okay, wow, this guy's going to be able to, you took it. You didn't talk real super negative about it. I don't think you really want to go like, you were more of a positive but negative, but I like how you jumped right in there on that part.
Yeah, it was a positive thing. It started negative, but we made a decision and it worked out well. It was phenomenal.
Joel, I got to tell you, I like his answers for tonight, man. He's first time on the show. I like yeah, that is true because if you both look at it, the questions I both asked you didn't see these questions before this, and look how fast, negative and positive.
Yep.
Look how fast. So I think that is a good way to approach. I think with the negative, I think sometimes you'd have to probably, Greg, you said it great, but I think some people might go a little bit too far. Just keep it kind of, you don't want to show them your anger. Like everybody knows, I got my best company, 10 years. I mean, great company, but one bad boss.
Right.
And I love the company. I would never say nothing,
Yep.
But even though Dante has my job, that we say that, but when you do that, you learn, you learn from that.
I don't have a day job anymore. We're in business for ourselves, and I do not have great things to say behind closed doors about a lot of the companies I've worked for. I would never say them publicly to anyone. Mm-hmm. Nope. That's just not professional. It doesn't make you look good. It doesn't make them look good. And that was just also your experience. You could work at Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is amazing, but you could have a bad experience working there. I don't know how, but but somebody could.
I know, right? They're all so polite. I think they teach. That's the cult. I'm sorry, that's the culture there.
Right.
My son even says it, Dad. They say thank you. They smile, and I'm like, you're 13 years old and you're saying that.
Yeah.
The culture that everyone should aspire to be around. If a 13-year-old's picking up on it without being asked to pick up on it, that's amazing.
Yeah. He says they're so nice.
Your
I'm
kid
like,
too.
yeah, and I've told Joe. I don't know if I told you a story about my daughter. She
Yeah.
works at Tractor Supply. She loves it. So during COVID, and she's been there for 7-8 years. And I said to her, I said, Tosh, you know, your dad does staffing. I can get you somewhere to make you more money. And she was only making $12 an hour. And she's like, Dad, I love my job and I like the people. And I said, what? He said, she saved me and said, I like my bosses and I like my people. I'm like, say that again, because you don't find many people that'll say you can go and make $4 or $5 more an hour. And you're saying you like it. You'll drive that 35 minutes when you could make it 10 minutes faster. But I thought the answer was pretty damn good.
You know what? That brings up a very good topic. I want to mention this. This is just a phrase I just came up with too. Well, we had a phrase in the Marine Corps. We always talk about the green. You know, don't let the green grass fool you.
Right.
And I had a few people that were planning on leaving their positions at my current company, and I kind of talked with them like, okay, cool, you want to leave? That's fine. Absolutely. They're like, oh yeah, they'll pay more, do this and this. I'm like, okay, cool, all right, they'll pay more. The grass is looking greener, right? They're like, yeah. I was like, well, that grass has to be fertilized by something, doesn't it?
I like that. See, fertilizer.
And that made them think, and now they're staying back because they went back and talked to other employees there, and they're like, dude, I'm glad I didn't go. I'm glad I'm still here.
That's I like that. And there again, I listen to you guys and you're telling stories. That's what I like about tonight. You can learn so much by just a short story.
Yep.
And the way you say it. And I really think if you and we're going to end it up over here. I think if you go into that interview and I've learned a lot tonight. I'd say more of a story. I'd have to change some of my stuff to tell that part. And I think it's going to go over good for the interviewer. Joel, if you had to sum it up for tonight on what would you recommend about interviewing and how to go through it in the process? What would you say to somebody listening?
Well, one, appearance is everything for an interview. I hate to say that we don't try to judge our characters on our appearance, but appearance is everything. Right. Come dressed for the job above what you want.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. Just for that.
That can go a long way.
Rehearse the common questions. Have your story rehearsed. Know what you're going to do. Know what you're going to talk about. Plan ahead. And then the other part is just get ready for oddball questions. Get ready for that stuff that's going to throw you off. If you go get ready for that, then if you accomplish those three things, you'll be set.
And your goal. That's awesome. Greg, you on the final notes here, what would you say too?
No,
I like your three things. I love that. I learned that tonight. I'm going to close it with your third one about saying about going in and what kind of person. I'm going to use that one.
Thank you. No, that's good stuff, Joel. Just to piggyback on that, rehearse the questions. Just have a broad idea of what to expect, and be authentic.
Yeah.
You're enrolling them on hiring you. They're trying to enroll you on being hired by them. And enrollment comes by being authentic. If I tell Joel, the Pirates of the Caribbean 5 just came out. They made a new one. It's awesome. I'm going to take my kids to see it. You're going to be like, oh, okay, I enrolled you in it. But I'm like, oh, Joel, yeah, this movie came out there tonight. Be authentic. You're enrolling the person. Just be authentic. You can rehearse as much as you want, and you should rehearse, especially if you're a shy person. Practice your stuff in the mirror a little bit. Get your confidence up. But just be authentic, because the interviewer, if they're any good at it, they're going to sense your authenticity. Yeah. So be authentic, ask good questions.
I love the answers, guys. I think that's a great for anybody that's watching tonight. I think that's a great way to rehearse. The big thing of it is to write it down. And when you're making those decisions, when you're listening, I always would use a scenario of like a scale. You're positive, you're negative, and you got to go with that gut instinct. And you're in there. I like the dress to impress. I'm sorry, that's just the military. That's just the way it is. First impressions go a long way. On a note that I learned the other night about ageism, if you feel you're going in there because, well, I'm older, like Greg was, Jesus, now I got my tongue. Murphy, he said to me, he's like, you know what, Dave, go in there. you got to spunk it up a little bit. You got to be excited on your interview. Don't be like low key. Just go in there with energy. Go in there with, ask the right questions. Rehearse it. It comes back to rehearsal. Ask those right questions, and I think that'll go a long way. They're going to know in an interview whether you're prepared or not.
Yeah.
And that's in my opinion. In logistics, even, listen, if you can't answer those questions, I like, Greg, how you did it, like looking with your eyes, if you don't know that. So body language on my note, would be even body language. Practice sitting, with your hands, where you put your hands, you're supposed to. If you're sitting down in the chair, straight, and you take a lot
like
of
Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, right. You can go like that, right? But no, I want to thank you guys. I think it was a great show. Wow, 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Phenomenal.
That's the longest show I've ever done. But again, everybody, for this, Paul Vacani. He's in California, and he's on LinkedIn. He's got like 8 great books, and you look him up. I bought all of them. So when I had him on my show, I was like, I got this one. He's got HR. He's got everything. I got this one. How to write people up. But I want to thank you guys for your time. I mean, that was a good show tonight.
Thanks for having us on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, we'll come back on and do. We didn't even again, Joel. I'm known for just taking the trees, and I don't even get to talk about half of this stuff here. But all right, everybody, have a great night and thanks. And we'll be back next week. Let's see. I'll calm it down with a video.